made by Marner! Holy mackerel!
It is Gilmore waiting around the net, waiting, he's open!
Gilmore! Johnny Toronto! I wonder if they can hear it on Long Island.
Great move! What a goal! Beauty! Austin Matthews!
Bless you, boys! What a game!
Welcome to episode 92 of the MLHS podcast. I'm Nick Ashbourne, joined as always by Anthony Pacioretty. Anthony, we kind of set this day to record a few days back, and I felt pretty ready to pat myself on the back with a 5-game series prediction. The Leafs kind of just taking care of business, getting things done, beating a lesser squad, and potentially resting up while the Florida teams went at it. Those Florida teams, you know, as we record now, Florida's got the significant advantage. It isn't necessarily going to be the long series we predicted. Still could be. That's very much in the air. But like in my mind, it was like, okay, Leafs are through. Tampa and Florida 2-2. Everything is going according to plan. It has not gone that way. The Leafs are preparing for a game 6 here. It is officially what we would call a long series. And having missed 2 chances to eliminate the Ottawa Senators, it's fair to say that like the media, the fans, the environment in Leafs land has turned to the dread and the Doomerism. And in some ways, you know, it's fair. They're 1-13 in games where they can close out a playoff series. That's pretty insane history at this point. On the other hand, a lot of things you'd say about the series are still true in terms of them having a talent advantage, having time to close us out. The Senators are not as good as some of the teams that they've struggled to close out in the past. Where are you sitting with all of this?
So I've been trying to take a step back, which is to say, I think if you told most Leaf fans that the Leafs were up 3-2 going into game 6 2 weeks ago, they'd probably take it. Right. I predicted the Leafs in 6, and I don't say that because like I could be right. I say that because I've just ultimately the way I felt going into the series was I think the Leafs are better. I think they've generally shown that they're better. And then at the same time, I just know that this group and really this organization has never done anything easy in their entire lives. So I bumped it to 6 just on the pure principle of I just don't trust them. And so that part has definitely come to fruition. But the bigger overarching point here is I think most people thought it would be a reasonable series, right? Like a Leafs in 6 prediction, I think a lot of people would have got on board for early on. And just the general idea of the Leafs being up 3-2 going into game 6. What's happened, though, is the Leafs went up 3-0, and then people started buying brooms and thinking sweep. And now not only did they not sweep them, but now Ottawa's won another game. So now the expectations maybe a week and a half ago have completely changed from honestly, 5 days ago. And now we're starting to get like the emotional kind of, output stemming. And I think when that happens, like we'll talk about it, but things kind of spiral, which you're seeing. And to this point, it's like, can they just get on track and take care of business? But I'm definitely not ready to write them off by any means. They have 2 games here, one's at home, and they got to win one.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be ludicrous to be like, you know what? The Leafs are done. It's over.
I think a lot of people believe that,
but some people do believe that. No, I mean, honestly, when they went down a single goal in game 4, I got texts being like, oh, the Leafs are going to blow this. Like, that's the level that we're at. Yeah. It's like they go down a single goal and relatively early in that game, and people are already going to this dark place. And, a lot of this history is justified. I will say that I think this is a game 5 conversation, really, right? Because in game 4, they're on the road. They end up losing in overtime. Berube even said after the game, he generally speaking liked the game. I didn't think that was an awful thing to say. I thought that if I were the coach, I would have been relatively satisfied with that game as well.
Until they lost, I basically thought they were winning that game the entire time.
Yeah, and there's a couple goals there that Stolars I think normally gets, and it's not like it was abysmal performance from him, but I think if you had him playing the way he played in the previous games of the series, they would have gone through and they would have swept the series. So like really, and when you get to 3-1, I don't think anyone other than the most emotional in the pack are really starting to feel alarmed about the situation. I think the problem was that when game 5 came around, it was just eerily reminiscent of other games that people have seen in this context where the Leafs are in the game, they're not getting dominated by any stretch of imagination. You could even argue that they're carrying the play. You get some posts, and like I don't think they should be proud of what they generated offensively. Let's be clear. I don't think the fact that they got 0 goals is some kind of insane outcome. Like Olmark was good, but like they should have created more. But it just looked like a lot like some of these other games where they're at home, they just can't get it done. The power play doesn't get it done at all. Like the power play record in these games, and this is a Sportsnet stat, tweeted it out. The power play 1 for 32 in these 14 games. Just like that's just a ludicrous.
It's like a delusional laugh at this point. Like that's all you can do. It's just like I don't like what's there to say.
It's absolutely unbelievable. And so I think that the fact that, like, I think if game 5 had gone to overtime, say, and they'd lost, and like there would still be a lot of this. I'm not saying that none of it would exist, but if it, then you'd say, okay, they won a couple coin flips, they lost a couple coin flips, ready for game 6. This is, it's getting antsy, but I think it was the fact that this game just looked a lot like other games they've had in this context, and people's, the alarm bells just started going off for people. And we'll see. I mean, if they lose game 6, I think there will be like that's a whole other level of this. I think that just about everybody would like to see this get over in 6 because like the amount of pressure that would be on that game 7 is insane. Because if they lose this, like it's it's era over. It really is. Like
Yeah, it would be done.
Like how could you say, you know what, like
Nick,
let's give it another go.
We're not getting into that now. We would have plenty of time to discuss that if it happens. I think, but I do think that's a good segue into kind of what I wanted to talk about a little bit early on here. Some of the anxiousness of the fan base is I think everyone kind of goes there. And I think everything is kind of geared towards kind of following down that rabbit hole of like, well, how's the doomsday going to play out? And honestly, I think for fans that have been consuming this series from the very start, I think that is the coverage that they have largely consumed on television. Like if I go through it, game 1, the Leafs speed bagged them in game 1. Like you're kidding yourself if you think otherwise. That game was so over about not even halfway through. It wasn't even funny. And they go to the post-game panelists, and what do they talk about? Derek Lalonde tries to talk about zone time. And I know we talked about it last episode, but then he goes on this whole spiel of like 5-on-5 play and the Sens establishing their forecheck. And it was so not in line with the reality of the context of that game. But honestly, it had to be one of the number one things that I saw people flagging, either to me personally or on the site in the comments or elsewhere in, the Leafs like Barilko where it was, hey, like the Leafs got outplayed 5-on-5. Like, is it going to be okay? And I'm sitting there going, like, they killed them. Like, why? Like, what are you watching? And then, it was more of the same after the second win. And I'm like, they're up 2-0. I don't understand. And right after they won to make it 3-0, it was like the conversation already started about like, well, like what would happen if they blow it? And they lose that game and it's an overtime and it's a tight game. And you know what? Sure, they got the overtime bounces, quote unquote, the previous 2. Maybe there's a little bit of evening out in that scenario, but now you really start to see it kind of go. And like we obviously, like at Hot Stove, like Alec and I watch like every single press conference. Like we watch every single interview that these guys do. And when it was 3-1, Steve Simmons shows up to his first off game practice skate of maybe the season. Like I don't even think he covered the team for about 4 months of the season. and goes to Marner and Tavares's interviews to ask them about blowing 3-1 against Montreal. And it's like, what? Like, where have you been? Where have you been for most of the season? Because it hasn't been covering the Toronto Maple Leafs, but you damn well made sure that you showed up to ask that on an off day, which is completely out of norm for how you've covered, quote unquote, the team. And then I actually wrote this down yesterday because I did watch the pregame. I've been like trying to avoid it. Um, just because personally, like I'm not aligning with their coverage, but I actually went back and I jotted down what they spoke about here. So bear with me as I read this. Pre-game, first segment, fawning over Jake Sanderson. Second segment, well, it wasn't a segment, but then they note Travis Green said they needed the win to get the pressure off and what that could do for Ottawa's confidence. Then a goalie piece where they talk about Allmark maybe finding his form and hopefully he can steal a game, to which they then talk about the Leafs goaltending to kind of ponder when they should potentially switch from Anthony Stolarz to Joseph Woll. This is before game 5, by the way. Like the Leafs are up 3-1. Then there's a Craig Berube interview where he's asked about not changing the lineup to try to keep the team confident. Then there's a segment fawning over the Sens special teams, even though the Leafs to that point had largely worked them so far in the series. Then there's a little thing on Nye's breakaway moves because he scored 3 different breakaway goals this season in the past like 3 months. And then and then they went ahead and the panel ranked the game for importance for the Toronto Maple Leafs in terms of the stress level should they lose that game. And then we got to a commercial break. Like that was the coverage that you received as a fan. Everything was geared towards negativity for Toronto. Everything was geared towards positivity for the Senators. And everything was already viewed from the lens of, well, what happens if they lose? And the game hadn't even started yet. And yes, they ended up losing the game. And yes, now it's a little bit more of a real conversation. I don't think a ton. I don't think to the level of which it's been blown out of proportion just yet.
No, I think we're like in public, the game 7 conversation is being had for game 6. Like we're already having the game 7 conversation in terms of what the headlines are and what, the sports radio is and all that stuff, which is a little bit unfair because they are leading the series. They are in control of the series.
I don't think a single other Canadian team would get covered that way.
Now, I think that there's a couple of things that go into that. I don't think it's necessarily this malicious master plan. I think it's 2 things. One,
I think negativity sells, and I think that's what we're getting pushed.
It does sell, but it's not negativity for negativity's sake. It's negativity for business reasons. Like, this is the way that Leafs fans are thinking at this point, and so you're feeding raw meat, and what you should like.
But what came first, the chicken or the egg, is partly my question.
I mean, the results
is there what they are. They are, but is there some level of negativity because that's what like you're constantly hearing all the time?
For sure. I also think that people who are not Leafs fans like to see negativity about the Leafs.
Yeah.
So I think that like you're also feeding the Canadian non-Leafs fans audience something that they want as well. Again, like I'm not saying this is great television, and I think that our job should be to try and like elevate and inform and let people know what's actually going on. But like I can see how all this comes together.
Yeah, I mean, there's no like that's not a pregame to me. The pregame to me is like, well, what changed when they went to Ottawa, and what are the Leafs going to try to then swing back into their favor now that they're back in Toronto? And how is that going to work? Like there's a chess match at play here, and we're not getting any of it.
But that's why we exist, right? Like that's what this show is for, right? Like they're different lanes.
Yeah, I mean, thank you, I guess. But you're right though. Like ultimately we hear it. Like I see it on our site if you want to view it as like a microcosm of Leaf fandom. But we note every year that we get all sorts of like new commenters or people we haven't seen on the site since basically this time last year commenting, and it's quick to pop up anytime anything bad happens with the group, right? It's like when that happens, like people come out of the woodwork. Like suddenly Steve Simmons knows how to ask a question at a press conference, or a media availability on an off day. And so, like some of it is just to say like pump the brakes. Like I'm not sitting here saying like I guarantee the Leafs are going to win the series because I don't. And I'm not saying that like some of it's not justified because it is. I'm just saying like the level to which it's like blown up right now is probably a little bit high. It's actually probably a bit of a good thing that they're going to the road, but like, I think now maybe a good time to start transitioning into it. Like I think there are a few legit concerns. I think there are a few things that are not concerning. Um, and then as we kind of look at it, it's like, well, what's the path forward? So first and foremost, do we want to start talking about the things that are actually concerning, or do we want to talk about the things that are like nothing burgers?
I mean, we can throw some nothing burgers out of the way first. Like one that I'd like to, and like you can agree or disagree with this, but like again, we're not to harp on the broadcast. Like again, at the very end of the broadcast after the game, I don't know, it was the very end. Maybe it's just when I turned it off. But like Elliot Friedman just kind of threw out of nowhere, like, "Oh, you think about Wool for Game 6 at this point?" And I don't have concerns about Anthony Stolarz. Like I think that the body of work is there. I know that it's been a long season by his standards, a big workload by his standards. But as far as I'm concerned, he had one sort of suboptimal game in Game 4. And beyond that, I just don't think that going to Wall, who's been on ice this whole time and did not play nearly as well as Stolarz down the stretch, is a productive move that I would make. And that's something that I don't think that there should be a particular amount of anxiety about. Like, I just think that Stolarz more or less has been good in the series. And he's really good at the end of the season. The guy, a couple of days ago, guy was on an 11-game winning streak. So that's one personally. And again, you're entitled to disagree, but that's one that I would put to the side.
Yeah, I've kind of flip-flopped back and forth on this one, and it kind of feels to me like there is no right answer. There's only whether you get the result or you don't get the result. So we look at it. This is the Anthony Stolarz save percentage by game. And starting at game 1. 939, 929, 900, 810, 882. Now, save percentage isn't everything, but I do think in game 3 and game 4, he let in goals in each of those games where I was like, he should have saved that. And he also did that at the very beginning of game 1. Now, I don't really blame him for like a Shabbat point shot through traffic, where Justin Holl would have been called for interference without question if he ran the pick that Giroux did. And I mean, the 2-on-1, it's like, it's a nice 2-on-1. It's a good finish by Cousins. Like, it'd be cool to make a save. But like, are you really going to look at him and be like, that was on you? Or like, come on, man. Like, that's tough to say. I think it's worth, where I think it's worth flagging is that Stolarz is not like some like horse. Like he's not a proven workhorse. If it's, we'll just go back and use like Leaf goalies. But if it was like Ed Belfour with like a young Joseph Wall behind him, there's no conversation, right? If it's Curtis Joseph, if it's like guys who've done it, but Stolarz hasn't done it. And so like if you kind of look at him as the series goes on, you're going, well, he's getting like maybe a little bit progressively worse. And at the same time, like he spent like the season in a tandem, and now you're basically saying be the guy. Is there something to that workload suddenly increasing for him pretty significantly and switching to Wool?
But I think that you could say the exact same things about Wool. That's the issue, right? Like it's not, if you switch to Wool, you're probably not switching to a tandem. You're switching to Wool and you're taking on the exact same concerns with him.
I think if you're switching to Wool, what it would be is like you hope to win the series in one of the next 2 games. And then it's a blank slate. Every new series is a blank slate. So whether like
If
if
you
they
switch someone out, I think chances are you're going to end up going with the guy who won you the series, especially when a
I
series
think
win has been so hard to come by.
I think you're going to start with him, sure, but I think you could switch it. Like if let's just play it out. If Joseph Wall went in game 6, plays well, they win. He's starting the next 2 games of series 2. If he's not good in those 2 games, you could easily go back to Stolars without blinking. Where it
Yeah,
gets a little bit dicey is like if he's pretty good, but not
I just don't want to
great.
invite that into. I'm not worried enough about it to invite that into my life. And like I said before, Game 4 is his only game that I like actively didn't like. Yeah,
What are you inviting into your life in that scenario though? Like that wouldn't really bother me. Like to me, like honestly, like I just think it's like one of those where it's like I could understand either decision that he makes.
I think
It,
for me, it's like if Stolarz falters in Game 6, then I would understand going to Wall.
I
But
think that would be insane. That I wouldn't like. If he just suddenly was like, "Whoa, you're playing game 7."
yeah,
That's
if Stolarz was dog shit for sure, because then
that's
you'd like 2 of the last 3 games have been bad.
to me, if you start Stolar's game 6, you have made your bed with him for the series. Like that's how I'd view it. Otherwise, I'm just gonna start calling him Jim Montgomery circa 2023. Like I just like Allmark would probably like sit there and be like, I remember that when I was on Boston. Happened to me. Like I don't think you could I don't think you could bring in a guy cold with like so much on the line for the organization.
He'd have to have been really bad. He'd have to have been like really bad, not just like eh. Anyway, I did a terrible job of throwing out a nothing burger here because we've been talking about this for however many minutes.
Like Wool hasn't played since April 17th. So he'd be coming in like 2 weeks cold. And what, he missed like some practice time this week because he was sick. Like, like, like I said, I think you either bring him in game 6 and you're like, you're winning us one of 2 hockey games, or Stolars is our guy for the series. But like, I don't feel strongly about it one way or the other. I just think that you have to be definitive in terms of game 6. Like I'm just looking at whoever the game 6 guy is as also the game 7 guy. And like I said, I think you could make a fair argument for either one. It's kind of like a no win situation, and the only win is the result. Like if
It's
they win the
also
game,
to
you're a
some degree a
genius.
no lose situation. I think, Wall's a good goaltender who's looked good when he's been called upon in the
Yeah.
playoffs. Stolarz is a
For
good goalie who until a couple days ago was on a hell of a run. So
for game 6, I think it's a no lose situation. For game 7, if he was to roll Stolars and then switch to Wool for game 7, I'd be like, this guy's insane.
well, we're just talking about not looking too
Yeah.
far ahead and assuming losses. So
I'm
let's
not, yeah, but as a coach, if you're planning that out, like you do have to account for that. Now, other little decisions I think facing them. So I think Pacioretty had a good game 3. And as he noted, he kind of expected that on the adrenaline. And then also, as he noted, he didn't have a good game 4. And maybe that kind of adrenaline wore off. And then they got an extra day's break, right, at the turn of the series. And then, we heard like his family flew down. Like he has 5 kids. And like, I'm sure, I mean, obviously they haven't been seeing him play hockey. So I thought that we would get a pretty inspired and fired up Pacioretty, like first home playoff game, of the season for him, and family there. And he's had a few games to get his feet wet. That did not happen. Like he did not play well.
inspired was not the word to
That
describe his game 5.
which I was stunned about given all of that. So to me, like, I don't know if it's a nothing burger, but like to me, like no brainer is like Nick Robertson back in the lineup.
Yeah, I'd co-sign that. I don't see upside with Pacioretty right now. He looks really slow. He just, he looks a bit rusty. I don't think there's that much importance on him just running a couple guys like they're struggling to score goals. Nick Robertson is a legit 5-on-5 goal scoring threat. And whatever line you have with Domi is going to have these matchup problems anyway. I don't think Pacioretty gives you some layer of defensive responsibility that changes the paradigm of the matchup game. So just you live with the limitations of a Domi line. You throw Robertson on that line. You pick your spots. You hope you get a moment of brilliance out of that group. Like
Yeah, that's basically
that's
it.
what
Like,
it is.
I'd be pretty fired up for scratch and score, as I'm sure all of Leafs Nation would be. Like, I mean, damn, if he did it, I'd probably scratch him for like the game one of like next round and just have him ready for game two.
Save them for game
Yeah,
7. We
be
can
like,
make it to the end here.
yeah, we'll alternate games here until we like it. So yeah, I mean, like, I think that one's, to me, it's a no-brainer. I also thought that there's really only two coaching decisions to this point in the series. Well, I guess three that are like baffling to me and like worthy of criticism. So in the last episode, we talked about Max Domi starting the series on line two. Never made any sense. Didn't look good in the season. He's never been good in that spot. He doesn't do any of the dirty work or sacrifice at all that's required to play in that role. It went accordingly, and it was kind of like they survived it. And now Pontus Holmberg is there. So it's two separate decisions, but it's the same thing.
It's literally both ends of the same spectrum, right? Like
Yeah.
it's the most extreme guy here and the most extreme guy there, and neither of them are the right guy.
And ultimately, like I actually feel bad for Holmberg. Like I think he's being set up a little bit for failure. And I think he's receiving a level of criticism that shouldn't be directed at him. It should be directed at the coaching staff for putting him in that position. Holmberg is a fine player. Like he's a legitimate NHL player. He skates, he's good on the walls, he's responsible defensively. Like he can take a regular shift in the league. There's some level of versatility there in terms of playing center and wing. He's just not a top six forward. Like that's not his fault that the Leafs are shoehorning him into a top six forward spot when he just he doesn't have the ability to shoot. Like he literally cannot shoot. Like he had 19 points this year, and you have a 19-point player playing on second line left wing, and he's just, from a skill perspective, he's just unable to keep up with those guys, and it looks like oil and water.
And I think they also need the third guy in that line a little bit more. Like when you think about the Marner Matthews line, like when those guys are really humming, like sometimes it's a bit of a two-man game. But like Tavares and Nylander, like Tavares needs someone who can work some of the small areas with him. Like Nylander needs an outlet because he likes to make horizontal passes and like that. I think that player needs to be, and the solution might be Bobby McMahon, who has not been good recently, but like that player needs to be somewhat skilled.
It is Bobby McMahon, and like I wrote it after the game, and some of the commentary, it was like, well, McMahon's also been not good, we'll put it. Harsher words than that have been used to describe his play of late, which would be valid. I'm not saying Bobby McMahon's been good. I'm just saying if your two options are 19-point guy who can't shoot or make a skill play at all, or skill guy who won't do any dirty work at all, will not forecheck consistently, is a disaster defensively. They've tried him back there again in the third period of game 5, and that line got lapped so hard in the offensive zone that Ottawa made a far side bench change while they had possession of the puck in the Leafs zone. In Toronto, up a goal in game 5 of the playoffs, they got dominated so badly that the other team started changing guys across the ice. Like, those are non-starters. Like, that is a nonsensical decision. And so, yeah, Bobby McMahon is still right this very second better than both of those options. Like, those are not competitive options. McMahon had more goals this year than Holmberg had points. Like, what are we talking about? Genuinely, what are we talking? Like, there's no argument to be had. Now, if you said, well, McMahon started the series there and he looked like crap, I could take that argument. But McMahon has only played with that line for like 10 minutes and they scored a goal.
Yeah, the odd shift. It's bizarre because I know that if you sort of took their line data, it'd be very strong, but it did go on a downward trajectory. Like they were awesome, and then closer to the end of the season, they weren't as effective. But still, just like the characteristics of the player put McMahon in a position to succeed. The whole McMahon Domi Robertson or McMahon Domi Pacioretty more recently, like that group has had some good moments, but it just like make Domi and Robertson the feature of whatever this fourth line is, and then throw whoever on that line. Like it could be Holmberg, do some dirty work for them, like never really ideally get the puck in a dangerous spot.
I just think, look, ultimately, I think if you lay out all the options, you're not going to love any of them. But the only one that's actually had some level of offensive success on that line is Bobby McMahon. And so at the end of the day, as your backs start to get up against the wall, you have to quote unquote go down with your best. And if we're going over the sample of this season up until now, going into game 6, without question, the best results are with Bobby McMahon. Period. End of story. So if you're going down with Pontus Holmberg there, I just find that inexcusable for the coaching staff. So we'll see what they do on that end. And then the other decision I wanted to flag that I just thought made no sense was the power play in overtime of game 4. Like Tavares gets knocked out. He's in concussion protocol. Should have been a penalty, whatever. And they get a 4-minute power play and they put Riley on the point and it looked terrible. Like you moved Marner from the point to the half wall and you moved Matthews from the half wall to the bumper and you introduced a guy to conduct the power play at the top who hasn't been good at it for like a year and a half. Like that is a bad decision. And it looked bad. They ran into each other. I know you can kind of lament it and be like, well, Matthews kind of got robbed on like a rebound there. I don't think they ever should have had that situation play out. Like at one point, Riley dumped it into the corner. Like while they had possession, like he just shot it into the corner. And I like that just kind of sums up the way that he's played on the power play for pretty much the entire season this year and why he's no longer on the top unit. And like, to me, you had to, I don't care whether it was McMahon, you could have put Scott Lawton in the bumper for all I cared, but keep the other 4 guys in their spots. That power play has been one of the best power plays in the league in 2025. Just run them in their exact same spots and be like, look, it's not going to be John Tavares in the slot, but like you guys can still work it up top, like you 3, and you're just going to launch multiple bombs to the net and we'll see what happens. Nyes is still a lead in front and let's play it like that. Like, let's not overcomplicate that. They did overcomplicate it by moving 2 key cogs around to a point where they looked confused and unsure of how to create and what that offense was ultimately going to look like. And yeah, I just thought that was a really poor decision.
Yeah, I mean when that unit rolled out, like I just felt like they're not going to score. Like when they like those guys took the ice, I'm like, you kind of like you said, like there's this formula and you've messed with it too much, and we just we don't have to harp on what Riley can and can't do up there. We've talked about it a lot, but like the difference between Riley and Marner is immense. The difference, the downgrade of whoever you put in the bumper, be it against Tavares, that would have been significant. Tavares is a great mid-range shooter. He works well in the bumper, yada, yada, yada. Like, it wouldn't have been ideal. Like, just not having Tavares already put them in a tough spot. But
I do think if Tavares was in at that point, I do think the series is already over.
I think that, yeah, there's a pretty good chance of that. Like, I think you would have felt a different level of confidence about it. And now,
Tavares was really good in game 4. I should say, like I thought Tavares was their best player in game 4, and I thought Nylander was a close second. I just thought Tavares was a little bit more consistent shift to shift, but like Nylander was also like, he turned it on. I felt really good about Nylander in that game. Like Tavares was amazing. I thought like he was good. Like that was a big loss. That was a big absence for them at a big time.
For sure. And setting up those 2 goals. And I think it's fair to say he's been a bit disappointing in the series in general, but like, and so it kind of sucks when I think arguably your best effort is in the losing effort, but to an extent he kept them in the game. The power play is
you
interesting.
Want to go power play? Because let's go.
Yeah,
power play.
I think we got to talk about the power play now, because now I think going into the series, I don't know what my exact words were. I said something to the effect of like, the confidence is going to be there if they give up a single shorthanded goal, like whatever. But then if they give up two, then you might see some level of doubt seep in. And they've given up two. And if it were me, I would stick with this group. Like this group has been their best offensive weapon, especially, over the course of the series. Creating a 5-on-5 has been a challenge for the team. There's no two ways about it. The whole idea of this, it's tight defense, it's close play, it's goaltending, it's power play. Like that's the idea. So I think you lose that idea if you start to meddle with the power play. And I don't know if anything's been said on that account right now, but like as bad as the last couple of games have been, like I genuinely would just have to stay the course with this. Like as you mentioned, it's been months that this has been really good, and it's been one of the strengths of the team. And
you're not changing the power play.
can't.
It wouldn't make any sense to do what? Put Morgan Riley on the point? To put Bobby McMahon in the bumper? Like,
No,
you don't even have options.
it would be some kind of defense. It would be a Riley situation, which again, like I think would be a terrible idea.
Who is good that's not on the power play?
I mean, not like nobody really.
Okay, so that's the end of the conversation. That it is what it is. These are the five, and like either they figure it out or they don't, which I think is the next point, which is like, look, we can go back and forth. I think Holmberg on line two is insane. People are going to say Bobby McMahon's stunk lately. I'm not saying he hasn't, whatever. We can go back and forth on that a million times. We could talk about Nick Robertson in the lineup over Max Pacioretty. Like, end of the day, like, bottom line, it is what it is. Like, is Austin Matthews going to do anything? And I say Austin Matthews, not even Mitch Marner, not William Nylander, not John Tavares. Is Austin Matthews going to do a single thing at any point? And I understand that he has some points this series. I'm not saying he's been bad, because he hasn't been. He's been good like you would expect like a $9 million player to be good. But the problem is he's getting paid $13.25 million and is the highest paid player in the league this year. And he hasn't been that good, because we're 5 games in now. And can anyone definitively look anybody else in the eye and say Austin Matthews unequivocally was the best player in any single one of the games through 5?
No, I mean, you could argue like his specialty in the series has been nailing stretch passes. That's not what you want like Austin Matthews to be like known for in the series. Like his marquee things have been nailing stretch passes to set up breakaways for his teammates and winning faceoffs. Those are cool things to do. Respect. But like that's just not what you need out of Austin Matthews as his signature contribution.
You picked up some power play minutes and you took some hard, you picked up some power play points and you play some hard minutes and you make a few stretch passes and you win some faceoffs. And again, congratulations. You're an $8 to $9 million player.
You're an electric second line center with
that. That's what a second line center does. Like, he should unquestionably be the best player in this series. It should not even be close. If we track back, and we've buried the lead of this whole episode because really this is the whole thing. Like, all the other stuff, it's like, yeah, like, are people nervous? Yeah, people are nervous. Is the coverage of it poor? Yeah, the coverage of it's poor, and is also feeding into the anxiety that is being a Leaf fan. Are there some weird decisions going on? Yes, there are some weird decisions going on. Does any of it really matter if Matthews is a dog out there? No, not really, because this Sens team isn't that good. If Matthews just lit them up as the way you would expect him to, there wouldn't be much to say. But again, you're 5 games in. He hasn't been the best player at any point for any single entirety of the game. He has not been the best player. There's not one game where you can look and say Matthews dominated that game. He was a beast. He was unreal. And now, if we stretch it, if we look at his series last year against Boston and his series the year before against Florida, so now 3 series here and counting, he has 2 goals in 15 playoff games. And it's just not good enough.
And the goalie scored in this series, like the goalie's literally looking the other
borderline,
way.
it's
he's
an
throwing
empty
into
net.
an empty pocket.
He gets a 2-on-1 at a pivotal time of the game, and he misses the net. Like, he doesn't even hit the net, and there was so much net to be found. I thought about this and I wrote it after too, but like I really, really thought about it afterwards. Nobody in the league has scored more goals than Matthews since he entered it. And he gets a 2-on-1, like a clear 2-on-1. Like you will not get a more clear 2-on-1 in the playoffs. Like that was a November 2-on-1, not an April or May 2-on-1. And the D-man sold out on the pass. Like think about that. Like the D-man actually looked and was like, you know what? Go ahead, try to beat him. And he didn't even make Allmark make a save. Like that to me is like that's really problematic.
Like a lot of the time, on this show, I like to think that what we do is talk about things that are fact-based, and we're not always quoting stats, but stats are in the background of what we're talking about. But sometimes when you're watching a hockey game, like you just have an instinct. And like the best example, and I think I mentioned this before, like the best example I can think of is instinct of like when Pontus Holmberg touches the puck in a prime scoring opportunity, and you just have this feeling in your gut that like nothing's going to happen, and your heartbeat doesn't go up like a single beat. Like it's like, yeah, this is just another moment in the hockey game. And it used to be it's like a million years ago. It's like last year, Austin Matthews gets the puck in a few certain spots, and you've got this lizard brain, and it's telling you like, oh, that's in the back of the net. Like, and then if it rings off the post, or if there's a robbery, you're like, oh, that's crazy that happened. But when like Austin Matthews right now doesn't score, you don't get that feeling. You don't get that feeling of like, oh, he didn't score. It's like, oh, okay, like, yeah, and when he gets that opportunity, and like when that 2-on-1, I can remember how I felt when that happened. And yeah, I got a little bit more than the Pontus Holmberg bump.
This is Nick's LeBron James. Like I knew Kobe was getting 81 that night. Like just
you don't see me diving full feelings that often. But like, yeah, when he got the puck, I won't say I felt nothing, because that's not fair. I did feel something.
Did what the F come to mind? Because that came to mind for me.
Did what come to mind?
Did what the F come to mind? Because I watched that and went, what the F?
But I had no level of confidence that this puck was going in. And like in the past, I've definitely been a bit of a post apologist with Matthews, because he's been drilling posts, and like enough is enough. Like he's got like magnetic posts right now. And yeah, I think at a certain point, like you just laid out, here's the amount of playoff games. You can say excuses. He's been physically run down in the Boston series. We know that he's dealt stuff this year. At the end of the day, like the results are what the results are. And like so much of the attention for all of these things that have happened in history have been put on Mitch Marner's shoulders, and sometimes shifted to Tavares when people feel like he's overpaid or he's aging. Not so much this year, because he's been great. But yeah, a lot of this rests with Austin Matthews, and he's the fundamental reason to believe that the Leafs are going to break this pattern and make a huge playoff run, is the idea that Austin Matthews is like one of the very best at this, and someone who can elevate a team, put them on his shoulders and drag them. And we're just like, he keeps having opportunities to provide evidence that he can do that, and the evidence has yet to appear.
I want to pick my words carefully on this, and because I know the injury excuse is going to come up. Now, if he got a new injury in the past like month that then requires him to immediately have surgery after the playoffs, whenever that is, I will sit here and be like, you know what? Like looking back, maybe makes a bit more sense. Would have still liked more, but it makes a little bit more sense. But short of that, and specifically, I said only in the past like month and a half, because we know he's been battling something all year. Everybody knows that. The whole league knows that. When you decide to go to Four Nations, that is out the window. So short of him picking up some significant level injury that requires surgery, I don't really care at this point. This is what's the Josh Donaldson line? Like, this isn't the tri league. Like, this is the results league. And when you actively decide at a time when you could have rested and healed up further to prep for the stretch drive and then ultimately the playoffs, and decided to go to a made up tournament which was awesome, but still made up. That's out the window. You know that to me, you no longer qualify for that excuse. That's done. There's no, he's been hurt all year. He went to Four Nations. That is it. There's no, I will take no injury excuse short of he got hurt in the past like 6 weeks. And it's so significant that he immediately requires surgery afterwards.
Yeah, I mean, that was fully optional. That was optional hockey. So
He didn't have to go.
and if it were the Olympics, it probably would have been slightly different. Like the Olympics hasn't been around in
I would have
years and
respected the
years and
Olympics.
years.
I would have
But,
respected
like,
the Olympics.
Four Nations is a little bit different.
No, you no longer get that pass. And I bring that up because that's another thing I see a lot. It's like, well, like he's been hurt, or like no. You go to Four Nations, that's done. That's you have lost that privilege or right or whatever you want to call it to bank on that. Now, if it was like he rested for Four Nations and he's clearly trying to do everything within his power, different story. I'd actually have a little bit more time for that. I think most fans are intelligent enough to see that, where they'd be like, man, like this guy's hurting, like he's clearly trying to gut through it. He's made other sacrifices in other areas in order to be here for this moment. Like it's maybe not going the way he wants, but that is not the situation that he himself has put him in, and now by extension the team. So when you're watching 2-on-1s and you can't hit the net, when you're watching just the absolute worst saucer pass to the point, like cannot happen. Like he's got to own them. Like he is the top guy. He is the dog. Like can the other 3 or 4 or 5 or like the depth guys be better? Sure. But like at the end of the day, can a top guy on this team like actually put them over the edge? Because if we kind of go through it and like I don't want to revisionist history the first 3 games of the series, but if you look at it, Ekman Larson kicks off the scoring of game 1 on a play that the fourth line was on for and teed up. And then the top guys started eating and they cooked on the power play and all that. Game 2 was a Max Domi overtime winner. Game 3 was a Simon Benoit overtime winner that, yes, Matthews won the faceoff and Nyes went to the net. But like at some point, like can one of your top guys have like a pivotal moment at a pivotal moment?
I mean, we're gonna find out. That's the thing about being up 3-0 is that you're gonna get plenty of shots to show that you can do it. Right?
A ton of kicks at the can here. A ton. Yeah. The most possible kicks at the can, Nick. Like no one gets more kicks. The way it's structured,
you simply can't have more kicks at the can. They don't take any wins off. You can't win 5 games in a series.
I think it's such an important note because, yeah, it's like, oh, well, what do you want to do with line combos? What do you want to do? Like, da 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 da. Like, end of the day, I'm like, don't overthink it. You have these guys, they need to get it done. And if they're not going to get it done, then there's no point of doing this whole charade. Like, it's like, oh, how do you move the lines around? Like, does Scott Lawton play with William Nylander for a game to like try to like mix? Like, no. Either your top guys are going to get it done or you're going to go home. And that's it. And if the other guys get it done and the top guys don't, then you're still going to go home. You're just going to go home 2 weeks later. So like end of the day, like the top guys have to get it done. That's what this whole thing has always been about.
And I think Matthews is also like he's in a slightly different tier. Like I mean, that's not a crazy take, but like everyone says core 4, core 4, core 4, but like Matthews is the one who he's the 1C. Like it is simply a bigger role than any of the other guys have. He is the guy with, like you said, who scored more goals than captain, more goals than anyone since he came into the league, more defensive responsibility, more like goal scoring load in theory, although that hasn't been the case this season. Like just higher expectations because, you know, he's paid in a different tier. And I know Marner in theory could get his money or more like in the future, but like, even if that's the case, we all know that that's a matter of timing and cap and yada, yada, yada. Like Matthews he's paid like the tier 1 in the league superstar. He's not like the superstar on the 8th best team in the league in theory. Now the Leafs kind of have been that like 8th to 10th best team in the league sort of deal in a lot of this time, but like that's not the way he would want to think of himself in the league. That's not the way he's being paid, and that's not the player that we've seen enough to know that like he can be that guy who's like Matthews in the core three. Like that's what like he's the front man, like
He
it's a
is the
different
face of the
category.
franchise. He is unequivocally the face of the franchise. I think everyone's well aware of that. And it's like, look, I don't even know what to call it. It's not to be negative on him. It's just to point out the reality of the situation. Like he has to elevate and drive the bus. It's like, like one of my old coaches when I was a kid would always say, it's like, are you a bus driver or are you a bus rider? And right now he is a bus rider and they need him to be a bus driver.
And to be honest, like, and I'm not trying to be too dismissive about like we're talking about round one here.
Against Shane Pinto.
Like, we're talking about Ottawa. Like this is not like these sort of existential questions about who Matthews is and what he can be, what he's capable of achieving in the playoffs, how far the Leafs can go. Like there's so many further steps down the road than what we're experiencing right now. Like this is the basics. This is 101. Like there's a lot of runway still to go. And so like the fact we're kind of tripping over ourselves here and have been for a decade basically is pretty wild because like there's so much more like in the book of the playoffs and legacies and how how great players evaluated. Like this is nothing. Like a lot of guys, like a lot of the greats breeze through the first round every time, pretty much. Like occasionally get knocked out in the first round, like once in a while. But like this is nothing.
Yeah,
Theoretically.
and that's partly why I say like I wouldn't be doing some sort of major shakeup. I would take Pontus Holmberg off the second line because I actively think he's a detriment to that line, offensively speaking, anyways. And I don't think he brings enough defensively to sit there and say that this trade-off is worth it. Nor do I think that that line is so poor defensively with the Leafs defense and goaltending behind them that you have to sit there and go like, how do we protect them? I would just, again, put a different player up there that I think is going to provide more offensively, but not be as net negative defensively as Domi. And thus you're left with like basically two options of Bobby McMahon or like Nick Robertson. So yeah, that I would do. But that other than that, like I wouldn't change much. Like you're not changing the D pairings. Maybe you switch Stolars and Woll. Maybe you don't. I don't really, like I said, I don't really care either way. Just make the decision in game 6 as opposed to game 7. But end of the day, it's like I'm just gonna play the top guys and look at them and be like, either you guys get it done, or we're done. Like that, like there's no point of like hoping. And I saw Craig Berube tried to take the pressure off them today. Say it's everyone always talks about core, but it's a team effort kind of thing and team mentality. And it's like, yes, he's right. And if I was in his shoes, I would also lie to the media like that to their face. But behind closed doors, it'd be like, it's got to be you, right? And afterwards, after the game yesterday, after the game 5, you kind of hear some of their comments and you could tell they're trying to kind of keep things level-headed and composed in terms of like, we're still up 3-2 in the series and like we have a good chance and blah, blah, blah. But just kind of like listening to some of the things Matthews in particular was saying, it's like the execution at times wasn't there. We're a confident group in here. We're in a good spot. It's like, it's okay to just take accountability one day. Like, it's okay to just say, I wasn't good. I will be better. Wasn't good enough for me. I will be better. And people will respect that. We've talked about this so many times. If you are honest like that, you can't do it all the time. Like you can't constantly play like crap.
Another L for me.
Then,
Sorry.
Right?
Like
yeah. Like Scott Lawton did that early
-4
on.
again.
Right? It's like
tough night.
Yeah, played like crap again, but don't worry, I'll get it back. But like once in a while, you kind of need to be that tone setting guy. And like as everyone's freaking out in the market, like to me, that's like the pulse. That's like part of being a captain. Like that's part of being the pulse. Like I'd be looking going, that one was on me, which honestly, it largely was on him. I will be better. like this is on me, like focus on me, like nobody else. Like take the pressure off the rest of the team, put everything on you as the leader of the group, and your teammates will fight for you because they will respect the hell out of you for doing that. And like you'll always get your few, peanut gallery types amongst the fan base that will like try to use those things against you. But by and large, this is a smart hockey market. It's a dialed in hockey market. They will respect that. Like most people will see that and take that for what that is, like actual accountability and leadership. What pisses everybody off is the constant like, well, we had chances and we were close and if this bounce went right and that bounce didn't or whatever the case is, things could have been different. Like fans aren't stupid.
Yeah, we had chances on those 32 power plays. We only managed to score on one of them, but
like
we had a few shots on net there.
Like that can't be the case. I think that's a good segue into sort of like the final parts of this episode, at least for me, unless you have anything else beyond this. But I was thinking about that a lot from Craig Berube in terms of group management. So like this is the kind of stuff that they did bring Berube in for, because I think a lot of coaches could have stepped into this role, maybe not won the division, but they could have cruised to a playoff spot with this team.
I think almost any NHL caliber coach, like you'd have to screw it up.
Yeah,
to not make the playoffs.
You would have had to have went out of your way, especially with contract year Marner. Like just out of your way. But now, like to me, it's like Stolarz and Wall, like that's like a money-making decision because that one you could look at and argue definitively either way. That's the kind of thing he's going to be judged on. It's like, are you riding this goalie who's never really been a workhorse, or are you now making the switch? Like that, like I said, like that's not like a what is smart in advance decision. That's like you will only be judged on the result. And that's going to go.
And you might like make a decision that is objectively smart. Like you might have your
medical
staff saying like, here, we have some indicators that Stolarz is getting a little fatigued and maybe this, and then you go to Wall and he's just terrible. And it's like, I made the right decision, but you didn't make the right decision.
Yeah. Like that is not how you are getting judged purely on the result at this point. Like that is the kind of job, that is the kind of situation where like everyone thinks it's easy, but now that you're in that, if you're Berube, like you're weighing that for the next like 24, 48 hours, that's one of those where it's like not that easy to be an NHL coach all of a sudden. Like that's the kind of shit where you have to sit there and really like dial down. But that's also why I sit there on that second line and be like, man, like if you're going to go down, like go down with your best because this ain't it. So some of those other like decisions are racking up. Now, I think a big one is how he's choosing to handle the adversity, right? Like they've been punched in the mouth. And I actually don't mind this in the overall big picture of things because it's like you've seen this at times in like the World Juniors or shorter tournaments where like there's a team that kind of rips through to the finals or the semis and then they deal with adversity for the first time and they lose and they're out. Like it's beneficial to get some adversity now.
Yeah, but with this group, I think also ripping through would be such a difference that would set it apart.
I think it'd be different for fans. I don't think it'd be different for the team. I really don't. I think fans would view them from a different lens. But at the end of the day, if you win in 4 just to get murdered in 5, who cares?
Yeah, but I don't know. Like,
are you going to feel better about that
aspect of putting the bullshit in the past and doing something that you've never done before? I think is helpful.
I think all that would happen is people would have said, well, you played a crappy team and now you played a real team and you got lit up.
Which would probably be the truth if that's what happened.
Like, I don't think anyone would care. So I'm saying I'd rather them kind of get through a little bit of adversity now and hopefully, like, to me, that's more getting over the hump than simply just like winning the round. Right? I mean, I think like they're in it now. Like there is adversity now.
If I was to draw up like the version of getting over the hump mentally that would be most productive, it would be them losing game 6, coming home in game 7 and winning like 6-0.
Yeah.
And just like absolutely destroying, and Matthews gets a hat trick. There's your like perfect scenario. But like, I don't think anyone wants to see that actually happen. People want to see it done in 6.
It's going to be a long week and everyone's like entire, rest of the work week is going to be ruined if like you have to go to that point. So yes, correct. Now, all that to say is like I do think that there's this like level of adversity that's like good and healthy for them to like that they need to get over it, as opposed to like it, as opposed to like everything is just going right so far. Everything's just going swell. We're just cruising on through. Hagel's injuring Barkov, Ekblad's suspended. Like everything is like sunshine and rainbows. It's like the beginning of like Meet the Fockers when they're driving to the airport. They get all the greens and all that. It's like that's not real. Like getting over some adversity is a good thing. But how Berube is handling it so far, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying it's interesting. Like this is why he's here. He's here to help them get over the hump. And like when he won with St. Louis, he went to a team that was eerily similar to the Leafs, not in terms of how they were constructed, but in terms of this team that constantly made the playoffs, went absolutely nowhere in them, and constantly had to face these questions and these demons. And he was able to push them through that. And so far, that attitude, and we've talked about this a few episodes now, he's chosen to be very positive, right? It's like they lose game 5, and, his demeanor and his body language, and I don't know if this is what he's like behind closed doors with this group right now, but everything he's exuding publicly is very much like, we're in a good spot. Like we're up 3-2. We need to do a few things better, but very much like an era of like we're gonna be okay. Like we're a good team. Very positive, very on the up and up, not singling anybody out. We talked about how he came out and tried to protect the core a little bit today, right? It's like you guys are always talking about the core, but it's got to be a team effort. Do you agree with that approach?
At this point, yes. I think if you were going to like do the I'm gonna tear into some guys and light a fire under some guys, I think you do that with sort of a longer game in mind. I think it's too late in the game to be like, oh, like we're calm, we're calm, we're calm. Wait, we're not calm. Like 5 alarm fire. Like I think that if anything, I don't think the way the series has played out has really opened the door for that approach. Like if they had come out, won the first 3 games, and then in game 4 they laid an absolute disgraceful egg, then I think it's time to go like, wake up, you haven't won this series yet. Like you haven't closed series in the, I mean, I don't think he'd go, you haven't closed series in the past, but like you can do that where it's like, oh, the performance justifies that approach. Whereas I think especially game 4 was sort of an all right performance. And so I just don't think it really made sense for him to do that. And now, yeah, I agree with the premise of like, let's project calm here. Let's make it seem like this isn't the biggest thing in the world. Yeah, I think that the time for like, let's kick these guys in the pants is a time when you have a little bit more runway.
Yeah, look, again, this falls very much in the category of like there's no right or wrong, but there is a result, and that is how you will get judged. Because if they don't win, then it's going to be like, well, you sat there the whole time and you were like, we're up, we're fine, everything's good, don't worry about the core guys. And then if they lose, it's going to be like, well, the core guys didn't do anything. Clearly, you weren't fine. You didn't get it done.
Well, then the longer term is he doesn't have to worry about that because if it gets blown up, then the core guys aren't necessarily back around. And so you don't, then it's a whole new era. And again,
Yeah.
we don't have to go too far down that road, but it's like he doesn't need to sort of placate them for the future.
No, he doesn't. So look, I'm not advocating for him coming out here and saying, like, just lighting into them, or like I didn't like their first period in game 5. I didn't think it was a good start. I thought they looked nervous. I thought there was a lot of trepidation to their game. I wrote it. I counted like 5 guys that fanned on the puck in like ridiculous spots to be fanning on the puck. McCabe and Ekman Larson from the point. At one point, Bobby McMahon like rolled out from behind the net with like acres of time and space relative to playoff hockey and just fanned on a shot. Tavares fans on the breakaway. I don't know if you would want to say Nylander fanned on it, but he lost the handle, and then Domi definitely fanned on it on what could have been a breakaway. like they looked nervous. Like they didn't come out to me like a ball on fire. Like they didn't do anything to kind of get the crowd going. Like they definitely didn't come out with like an air of like we're ending this today. It looked very much like, well, this is going to be a 0-0 game and like we'll see who scores first and kind of roll along from there, and that's basically what happened. And like I like to me like that was worthy of criticism. And like those are the kinds of things he's not taking to the media at all. Right? If anything, like he actually said, like, yeah, I thought we had a good first period. And I was sitting there going, really? I thought it was a really bad first period. Like, not a really bad, but I thought it was a mediocre first period relative to the opportunity in front of your face, being back at home, the things I would expect. Like, you guys didn't come out flying. Like, Callie Yarncroc threw the biggest hit for your team in the first period. Like, I didn't think there was much there. And
It's tough
so,
to like, part of that's like, I think it was more individual foibles than like poor team structure though. And so like that's hard to be like, I'm gonna really like call out Max Domi for fanning on the
no,
puck
you're
in
not going to
public.
call out an individual for fanning on the puck, but like, to me, their blueprint for coming out for a game is how they came out in game one, which was they hit everything that moved. They got the crowd fired up. They attacked downhill. They didn't do any of those things. It was like, let's try to hit some stretch passes and nobody touch a body, right? It's like, I'm not trying to just like pick on like a bunch of single guys. Like, but if I look at like Matthew Nyes, like, has he thrown a hit of significance in the run of gameplay so far through 5 games? Like, yes, he knocked down Shane Pinto after the whistle, and it was funny.
Yeah, that was worth a
But
chuckle.
but like, I haven't seen him like absolutely just run someone over. And last year against Boston, like he was crushing guys. Like he was in it. He was a physical force. Now he's made power moves with the puck, and he's been a menace in front of the net. So it's not to say that he hasn't been bad. It's not like he's come out just throwing the body, right? It's like the only guys I saw that were doing that was the fourth line or the third line, whatever you want to call them. Lawton, Yarncroc, Lorentz. Lawton was going out of his way to finish checks. Yarncroc had the biggest hit of the period. Lorentz was finishing his checks. That line did a good job. They were cycling the puck. But it's like if I'm looking and saying, hey, not a good first period. Like
I mean, I
that
think that's open to like his interpretation of it is like we outshot them 12-4. We wanted to come out calm. We didn't like we've had some bad starts in the past. We wanted to have a controlled, structured start to the game. And I think that they accomplished that. And like they didn't have quality. Like those 12 shots were not like a good 12 shots. It's not like they had a bunch of quality opportunities. They didn't create much, but they were
did
comfortable with.
Allmark make a single good save in that period?
No, but like Ottawa. I mean, Ottawa had that one moment, obviously, where it could have been a goal, but like Ottawa didn't create much either. And like the Leafs are comfortable with
They,
that. Like
they
again, that's a philosophy thing that we could debate. And like now is not the time to go full Berube philosophy debate, but like there is an element of him being like, that's okay. We can live with kind of safe, static, nothingy period. Like he likes to be in that space, like more than most people do, more than I do, more than fits the Leafs roster, in my opinion. But like he is okay with that.
yeah, I mean, I look at it and say the two best chances of that period, not just the one, is Morgan Riley clearing it off the goal line and Chris Tanev boxing out Drake Batherson with an empty net in front of him. And you didn't come out flying and you weren't physical. And all that, again, to kind of circle back to the point, like I don't think Berube has to sit there in the press and like light up his guys. But I also think he could sit there a little bit more and be like, we need to find another level here. Like, we got to play better. And so far, the air is more like, we're up in the series, like, we're in control. Like, there's a few things we need to adjust. But, like, basically more of like an implied, like, I like where we're at, a few things here or there, and like, we'll be fine kind of thing. And I'm sitting there going like, I think you need to like push your guys to hit a level that they haven't achieved yet. In particular, your top guys who by no means have dominated the game yet. In particular, your top line. Like I do think Tavares and Nylander were like probably the two best players on the ice in game 4. But game 5, nobody was good. Your top line hasn't had a single lights out night at 5-on-5. Like I said, there's no right or wrong answer to it. Ultimately, Berube's going to be judged on the results. I am fascinated watching him try like handle it, right? Like they're obviously hearing noise now. It's probably seeping in a little bit with these guys. They have a number of vets who aren't associated with, their failures or whatever you want to call them. But like those guys aren't the bus drivers. Like the bus drivers are the top guys. They got to push through. So far he's chosen, you know, every little thing's going to be all right. I'm fascinated to see how that plays out for him and the group. And like I said, ultimately, I don't think you change a ton. I think you do enough to kind of like position them for the best possible success. But end of the day, you got to look at the guys and say, either you're going to figure it out or you're not. If you don't do it now, you're not going to do it next round. You're not going to do it the round after. It's got to come from you guys.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not one of those situations where they're getting their toughest opponent now, and if they can only escape this series, like then they'd be set up. It's like, no, like if you can't beat Ottawa, you can't beat Florida. Or if Tampa comes back, Tampa, and you can't beat whoever's coming out of the Metro, and you sure as hell can't win the Stanley Cup. Like no team in the history of the NHL that would be incapable of beating this Senators team has won the Stanley Cup. That's an impossible question to answer or statement to make definitively, but I believe that statement. Every Stanley Cup winner in history would beat this Senators team.
You can't win in spite of your stars.
No.
Can't happen. Cannot happen. So
especially when the stars make all the money and it's hard to distribute resources elsewhere. If all your stars are young and you can bring in veterans around them, maybe the veterans can steal you 2 games in a series and that's it. But that's not the situation.
I feel like their depth guys have done enough to set the table, sadly, for the top guys to like now do their thing. I think
the defense have scored 5 goals.
Yeah.
You're not getting more than that from
you have guys. 2 overtime winners from not one of your best players, like not even close, not even honestly amongst the top 10 best players on the team. Those overtime winners, like I wouldn't have Domi or Benoit amongst the top 10 on this team, maybe even top 15 if I really sat there and wrote it down. So, you've gotten enough. It's on the top guys, and either by the time we record the next one, it's going to be like, yeah, they got it done, and now to prepare for Florida, or probably Florida, but maybe Tampa, or we're going to sit there and say, all right, time to pick it apart.
Yeah, we have one of 2 very different shows for you next week. We either have a series preview or we have a post-mortem, the second in the history of this version of the podcast. We will see what happens. We really appreciate everyone who's listening, people who are watching now that we're on YouTube. We like it even more when you leave comments, ratings, reviews, things of that nature. Help us grow the show, keep it healthy. We will be back with you again soon when all the dust has settled and the nerves have gone away. And
it's never easy, Nick. It's just never easy. It's always got to be a story.
My Leafs in 5 prediction died a horrible death, and I probably should have known all along. This was going to be long and stressful as it always is. We will see you again next week.